Okay, price it right, build the buzz, and make the sale. Today on Art Marketing Monday, we're going to try to help you make some money by talking about how to price your artwork and many, many, many more things like getting started selling, networking, what else? Rebranding, and so many more. So if you're new here, I'm Eric Rhoads, founder of some art magazines, newsletters, conferences for artists, and others, other industries. I've been helping artists, galleries, and advertisers my whole career, and my superpower in the business of art is helping you sell your artwork. So I hope we can do that for you today. I've spent my career marketing and selling products, watching artists 10x their business. Wouldn't that be nice? I'm thinking it might be nice. So let me see if we can help you. Let's get this show officially started.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhoads. Now, here's your host, Eric Rhoads.
Hey, it's Art Marketing Monday on Art School Live, and I'm Eric Rhoads, and I'm here to help. If you want to send your questions, you can email them in, eric@streamlinepublishing.com. All right. Or you can put a question in the chat, and the lovely Megan will read your questions. So we're going to get right to it. We're going to hop right in and see if we can make you some money. You know, it's not always about the money. I want to make sure that you guys understand that. But sometimes we got to make a living, right? So let's see here. Sparky, who left a comment last week in the comments section, but we didn't get to his question. Sparky says, are there collectors, art collectors, who specifically look for only art that didn't win a ribbon or gobble up their art knowing the artist is hidden potential? I'm not sure I understand that question, Sparky, but let me see if I can just see if we can boil that down. This is, by the way, when you guys want to come on live, that's a good thing. I can delve into the question with you. Are there art collectors that specifically look for only art that didn't win a ribbon to gobble up art, knowing the artist has hidden potential? Yes, of course there are. So listen, there are all kinds of collectors, and there are collectors who don't even consider themselves to be collectors. There are people who just buy art. There are sometimes people who buy a lot of art but don't ever think of themselves as collectors. They see what they love, they buy what they love. Sometimes, Sparky, someone will say, you know, I really love this artist, I love everything they do, and they will buy multiple pieces and become a collector of that particular artist. And then, of course, there are collectors out there who want the best of the best. And so they're looking at it from the standpoint of, I want to own something that was an award winner. And that always helps, you know, because it should help the value in theory. So I think, you know, a lot of us like to collect artists who are on the rise, who are up and coming, or maybe who maybe are really, really strong, but just have not gotten to the point yet where their prices are higher. So there's a lot of opportunity there. So Sparky, just hang in there. You're going to be able to do it. Okay, let's see what our next question is. Again, if you have questions, email them to me, eric@streamlinepublishing.com, or go into the chat. I hope you guys are well today. So Lori Jenkins in Chattanooga, Tennessee says, I've never sold a painting or even tried. How do I get started? Lori, that's a great question. I think the first thing is why? Why? Why do I want to sell a painting? You see, sometimes it's not about selling paintings. I have told this story more times than I care to tell it. Well, I'll tell it one more time. I have these retreats that I do, and usually about 100 artists, and we get together for a week and we paint. And at night we sit around and we talk and we play music and we paint portraits and all kinds. We get really familiar with each other. And so sometimes at the retreats, if somebody asks, I'll do a little coaching. And so somebody wanted some coaching one time, and they said, you know, I kind of feel like I should be selling my paintings. And I said, well, why do you think that? They said, well, because everybody else does. I said, well, do you want to sell your paintings? No, not particularly. Okay. Do you need to sell your paintings? Do you need that money? No, I have plenty of money. So why do you want to sell your paintings? And what they finally realized is that selling paintings to them was validation, right? So that's why I sell my paintings. I need validation, right? So I have what I need. I make a good living, and so it's not about making my living as an artist. It's about other people recognizing that what I've done is valuable to them, and that to an artist is a really good feeling. And so some people will get that recognition from selling paintings. Other people will get that recognition from giving paintings away at charity auctions and things like that. So you can get it in a lot of different ways. So the first thing everywhere is why, right? Why? And then you've got to ask yourself, what's your strategy? How do I get started? Well, I think the simple way to get started, quite frankly, Lori, is just to try it anywhere and everywhere you can and get used to it, right? So, put yourself out there is what I say. It might be doing a local show. It might be a pop-up show. It might be a show in a restaurant. It might be doing an art show. There's a lot of different things. You're going to find that you have an opportunity to learn and an opportunity to get discouraged. You'll find out what works, what doesn't work. I had an art show. The first time I ever tried to sell paintings, I did it in a tent show, a local art show. This was in upstate New York in the Adirondacks. And I got the tent and I set up my thing in there and I paid however much it was for the tent. And I didn't really have a lot of work ready. So I just took work off the walls that I had done over the years and I took them in there and I figured, well, if they sell, I'll just repaint them if I like them. So I did that and nothing sold. It was pretty frustrating, but I learned a lot, right? I talked to a lot of people and quite frankly, my price points were wrong for that particular show. About the second day in, I started painting some small pieces and put them at low price points and they sold. But the first day, nothing happened. So, you just have to kind of learn lessons and try things and see what's going to work. I would say just to get started, just get some experience. You're going to be uncomfortable when you're talking about yourself. And when you're talking about your paintings, you're going to be uncomfortable. It took me a lot of time to get used to. I remember the first time a gallery called and said, we want to put your work in the gallery. I was like, why would they want me? We have this imposter syndrome, right? And you tell yourself, oh, I'm not good enough. And your brain plays games with you. And you've got to avoid that. You just have to get used to it. And the best way is just put yourself out there. And you're going to have some trauma, right? You're going to have some learning, some tough lessons. Not everybody's going to like you and not everybody's going to say nice things about you, but that's okay. Not everybody has to buy your paintings. Only one person has to buy that painting. Okay. All right, Jason Miller, who says, Jason's from Eugene, Oregon. How do I compete in a saturated market where there are so many artists online? Jason, I'm going to tell you something. This is for everybody's benefit. I know you're not going to believe me. There is no such thing as a saturated market, especially in art. No such thing. Everybody thinks the saturated market, there's not enough money out there to buy all the paintings and all the painters. Well, first off, there actually is. There are probably tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of artists who are making a living, and they're still making a living because, it's a big world out there. It's not just the United States. The United States has 300 million people. Some of them are going to buy paintings. And it really depends on, does your painting speak to them? Are you putting it in front of them? Have they found a way to discover you? And you're saying there are so many other artists online. There are millions probably of artists online, Jason. That doesn't mean that they're all selling, and it doesn't mean that they're all gonna sell. And it just means that you got to figure out how to get yourself out there in whatever that way it is, and you can sell. Saturation is a concept that so many people believe. I've been in marketing pretty much my whole life. And I got to tell you that I hear this from people that I work with from time to time. Oh, that market is saturated. Really? Okay. Why? Well, because nothing is selling. Well, is it possible that nothing is selling because we're doing a bad job selling it? I'll give you a great example. A friend of mine meets this author at a cocktail party, and the author says, I wrote this book and I was really excited. I spent a year on it, and I had 50,000 copies printed, and I didn't sell hardly any books. And so my friend says, well, what are you going to do? He says, well, I've given up. My friend says, okay, I'll buy all 50,000 books from you, and I'll give you a little bit of money if they sell. And so the guy said, oh, okay. So he changed the title. He just changed the title. He put a different cover on it, changed the title, and he put, under it, formally titled this or whatever. And he sold all the books, and then he sold, I don't know, close to 600,000 or 700,000 more. And so it was just the title change. That was the only thing he did. And so, you have to keep in mind that a lot of things impact what you might perceive as saturation. And so if you have a bad headline, I've watched, and I've done this myself, I've taken a bad headline where something didn't sell and changed the headline, and all of a sudden it sold. So a lot of different things impact it. How you put yourself out there, what you say on your website, every little thing, even the color of the buttons, it all impacts things. So don't believe this saturation nonsense. I think it would be really hard to saturate. I mean, think about all the art and all the walls and all the world. There's a lot of art out there. Okay, what do we have next? We have Matthew Clark in Durango, Colorado. Should emerging artists offer smaller entry-level pieces to attract first-time buyers? Okay, so this is self-confidence issues that are coming through. Your assumption, Matt, is that you're an emerging artist, so you should offer entry-level pieces to attract first-time buyers. Why wouldn't you offer normally priced pieces to attract first-time buyers? It's because maybe your self-esteem is telling you that maybe I'm not worthy. You are worthy. Now, that doesn't mean you can't try a lot of different things. My motto, test everything. Test everything, right? Yeah, maybe you should try some entry-level pieces, but why not try some full-price pieces? Why not try some really expensive pieces? Nobody knows that you're an emerging artist, except for you and maybe some of your buddies. So I had this discussion with a gallery, right? I said to the gallery, this was a gallery in New Mexico, Santa Fe, and they just invited me in, and I said, I want to be the most expensive artist in your gallery. And they said, but you're not the best artist. I said, I know that. And there are other artists whose work sells for more money. I said, I know that. And I said, but here's the deal. Somebody's going to walk into that gallery and they're not going to know any of the names of any of the artists in that gallery. They're not going to know the difference between Scott Christensen or a Kevin McPherson and an Eric Rhoads. They might notice the quality difference because those guys are better painters than I am. But a lot of people don't even know quality. What they know is what speaks to them. So the gallery owner wouldn't do it. But it was really interesting to watch because I was there when this couple was debating over whether or not to buy my painting. They had boiled it down to two paintings. They clearly didn't know either of the artists. I heard them discussing. I didn't introduce myself. I was just listening carefully in the background because I wanted to learn. And they the price was not a problem for them. They ended up paying the same price for something else, but it was just, maybe we should get this one. No, we should get this one. Maybe we should get both. They ended up getting the other one. But, not everything is about brand and reputation. Now, brand and reputation is one of the most important things you can do, but it's not everything because there is a sector of buyers out there that don't read the magazines. They don't study art. They don't know who's good and who's not good. They might not even know the difference between a good and a bad painting. And so you have opportunity in every marketplace to sell something. So anyway, that's probably more than you wanted on that. All right. So Thomas Green in Louisville, Kentucky. Is it better to build a strong local reputation first or go straight building and online sales? Thomas, I'm going to pick a bone with you there, Buster. Is it better to build a strong local reputation first, or is it better to go straight to building and online sales? Right. So you're assuming that online sales is where you need to go. You're giving me a binary, A or B, local sales or online sales. So could local sales also be online sales? You betcha. I buy things in Austin, Texas online because I don't want to drive across town. So is that a local sale or is that an online sale? It's both. And online sales are national sales. If you want to pursue national sales, that's not just online sales. As a matter of fact, the majority of selling is not necessarily taking place online. There's a lot taking place online, but there are hundreds of opportunities, events, and shows that are in person that people are buying in person all around the country. And if you can get into that, tap that, then you're going to be making money and selling nationally. So here's a question. I would frame this question a little differently, Thomas. I don't mean to embarrass you. You're a smart person, obviously. So the question would be, is it better to build a strong local reputation first, or is it better to go for a national reputation? Or another way to ask the question might be, is it better to start selling locally versus selling nationally? And that may have nothing to do with reputation, right? Now, I believe, I've always taught this, that I like to have at least two markets. I like to have a local market and I like to have a national market, right? Because local is simpler and easier in some ways and harder in other ways, right? So for instance, I've got this buddy who likes to work with regional galleries. And why does he like to do that? Because he does not want to have to ship paintings across the country, because every time he gets 10 or 20 done for a gallery and he has to ship them, it costs him money. Whereas if he can drive, he can get 10 or 20 paintings and drive for a couple of hours, he sees that as being easier than shipping. I don't know that I agree with that, but that's one opportunity. So I like the idea of building up a strong local, get some experience locally first. I'll tell you a story about Shelby Keefe. Shelby is a brilliant artist. She was a local artist around the Milwaukee area. She did a lot of art shows in Milwaukee. She built her reputation there. She was selling a lot of artwork in Milwaukee. And then one day she entered the Plein Air Salon art competition to try to win that $15,000 grand prize. And she won. All of a sudden, she became a nationally known artist. All of a sudden, she got invited into other galleries outside of Milwaukee. All of a sudden, she was invited to plein air shows all around the country. And so she went from being local to national, but she still had her local foundation. You see, there are good and bad economies, right? So if you live in a city, I lived in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I grew up in Fort Wayne. And when I was a kid, the biggest manufacturing plant in town, which was International Harvester, closed down. Hundreds, maybe thousands of people lost their jobs. Nobody had any money. Nobody was spending any money. But if I was a local artist and that I was dependent on that money in that town, that money dried up. But if I had regionally had some other things, so maybe Toledo was strong, or Cleveland was strong, or Chicago was strong, or other places were strong, then I would still have a little bit of balance. And then the same thing goes for national. So I would just ask myself, what's my local strategy, what's my regional strategy, and what's my national strategy? And you can go so far as saying, what's my international strategy? I now am selling paintings in China because I went to China, I got known, I got into a museum, got into some art shows. And so there's opportunities all around the world. And again, never saturated, as we talked before. So I think I would start out local. And the reason I'd start out local is because you can get known pretty easily. Start involving yourself in charity auctions, start involving yourself in local events, do some things at where the money is at the country club, things like that. Get used to the idea of talking about yourself and selling, and that will help you. And then once you get some lessons there, get that strong, and then add in the national, because national is a whole different thing. If you're doing it national, you should be advertising, you should be doing a lot of other things. It's not all online though. All right. Okay, I want to tell you guys about a couple of things. First off, we have a big event coming up this month. Now that it's officially March, we have a big event which is called Acrylic Live. It is a 4-day online conference on acrylic painting. The first day is an optional essentials day, and then there's 3 days of demos and discussion and learning from some of the best artists in the world who paint acrylic. And you'll want to be on that. It's online. It's easy to do online. March 24 through 27. And if you can't make the dates, you can still go because we have every ticket includes playback. All right, certain number of playback. So make sure that you attend that. It's acryliclive.com. All right, let's go to other questions. If there are questions in the chat, I see people saying, how important is a degree? That's Emily. Emily is asking, how important is a degree? Depends on what you want to do, Emily. If you want to teach in the higher education system, in the colleges, or in the high schools, then they're probably going to require a degree. You might need a master's of fine art to teach in a college or something like that. In terms of selling, I don't think it matters. You don't go to a doctor who doesn't have a degree, but that's because you want that person to know how to keep you alive. But it's not with an artist. You're going to see something you love. There are brilliant artists who come from all walks of life. Interestingly enough, there are a lot of doctors who paint. We get a lot of them to our things like the plein air convention and our retreats. There are a lot of people in high stress jobs who paint because they need something to help them relax. But anyway, I think that I don't think you need a degree. I mean, I'm not suggesting you don't get one. I think if you can get one, that's a really great thing. But it's not necessarily the end of the world. It's not going to prevent most people. I don't think most people walk up to someone in an art show and see the beautiful art and say, yeah, I was thinking about buying this, but do you have a degree? I just don't think that probably is likely to be happening. Okay, I'm looking through the chat right now for your questions. If you have questions, go ahead and drop them in. And in the meantime, we'll just move on to the next question. This is from, let's see here. What do we have here? This is from Aaron Wallace in Minneapolis, Minnesota. How can I turn social media followers into actual paying collectors? Well, the best way to do that is to focus on paying collectors. Now, what I mean by that is, first off, social media, everybody's thinking everything is about social media. I have some friends who are business consultants, and they are involved with some really big companies. And those big companies do a lot of social media, and yet only about a third of their income comes from social media. The other comes from advertising in other places and being in other places. And so everybody's got this mindset of everything's about social media, and it's a beautiful thing, but it's not everything. And so keep in mind that if you want to build a business, there are lots of ways to build a business that also include other things. Back when I started out, we'd do everything you could imagine, from flyers to, on windshields and everything like that. I'm not saying sell art that way. I don't think that's a good thing to do. But the idea is, there are a lot of people. You try to use. There's an old saying that you sell people the way they buy. Think about that. Now think about someone who is not the most internet savvy person. And by the way, interestingly enough, it's not always about age. I was with somebody the other day. They're totally not internet savvy. Like, how do I do this? What's this button for? And this was somebody who was in their mid 40s, just not tuned into it at all. But if they got something in the mail, they'd be like, oh, what's this? And so you've just got to keep in mind that there are lots of other ways of doing it. So to answer your question, how you turn social media followers into actual paying customers, you start talking to them in their language. You don't put things on your social media that don't have to do with them. All right. A typical thing artists do is they talk about, here's a painting in progress, which I think is a stupid idea. Sorry, guys. And the reason is because we're scrolling by at 150 miles an hour and we see a painting and we go, oh, that's not very good. And then we look at your name and we go, oh, that artist isn't very good. They're not reading the caption that says this is an unfinished painting. They're just saying your name, bad painting, moving on. All right. So what you want to do is talk in their language. Collectors talk differently than artists. Figure out how to speak to them, figure out what they want to know about, figure out what interests them. Only talk about that. If you want to have a social media account that's for artists to sell workshops, great. Have that too. Make it a separate account. All right, next up is Caleb Morgan in Birmingham, Alabama. All right, Caleb. All right, how important is networking in person compared to digital marketing? Well, all of these questions, guys, Caleb, all of these questions boil down to one thing and one thing only. It's the most important thing you can do. Anybody know what it is? You guys have been watching this long enough. You guys are in the chat. What's the one thing that is more important than anything else that you do? Anybody? Anybody know? The one thing is strategy, right? So, Caleb, you've got to set strategy before you go out selling paintings. So strategy and tactics are two different things. They're connected, but it's like this arm is strategy, this arm is tactics. It's probably more like the body is strategy, the hands are tactics. So think about this. Who do my paintings appeal to? Let's say that you're painting, I've got a friend that paints golf courses. And so he goes around and paints the most beautiful golf courses in the world, and he sells golf course paintings. He's a good painter. And so what's his strategy? His strategy is not to go to everybody, because not everybody golfs. I don't golf. I used to, but I don't anymore. So if it was, his strategy is golfers, go after golfers. Now, he lives in the Bay Area, San Francisco area. And so he likes to sell originals. So he's focusing on golf courses in the Bay Area. And so who's his strategy? Local people. Now, if he were doing prints or he were trying to do national things, then he'd be doing paintings of St. Andrews and other places like that. And he'd be making his living nationally or internationally. So strategy is important. Who's going to buy it? How much are they willing to spend? How do I reach them? Where do they spend their time? What are their interests? Those kinds of things. Those help you define strategy. And then tactics are, I'm going to go to a local cocktail party and network. Or tactics are, I'm going to send a direct mail piece. Or tactics are, I'm going to do an online thing. So that's what you want to figure out first. So I can't really answer that question for you, Caleb, because I don't know how important networking is until I know your strategy. I will say this. If your strategy is to sell locally and or regionally, I think it's very important. I do a lot of networking stuff, and I always have. I don't do as much as I used to because I'm so busy now. But if I had my own airplane, then I'd be like, okay, I'm jumping on my airplane. I'm going to go out to this event, and then I'm coming home, sleep in my own bed tonight, right? But I don't have that kind of money. And so what I've got to do is figure out what's important. So I can't attend everything. So I'll pick 2 or 3 events a year that I can attend, and I'll go to those, and I usually do a speaking engagement, and they usually cover my expenses and pay me and stuff like that. And that is an opportunity. I'm going to be in Florence for 5 weeks, and there's a big event going on at the Fabriano event it's one of the great watercolor events. I'm going to get on the train that weekend and go up there and just kind of hang out with people and see them. And that's networking, intentional networking, to meet people, to look for ideas of painters that I could put on Watercolor Live or put on the plein air convention stage, just to meet people, talk to them, and have them get to know me and know that I'm actually not going to bite, right? So I think networking can be important if it's about local strategy. All right, greetings from Kokomo, Indiana, she says. Well, I'm from Indiana. All right, so let's see. Here is from Jerry Claude 2322. I don't really want to sell, and I have a lot of artwork because I teach. What's wrong with me? I do not mind selling commissions. There's nothing wrong with you. Look, I have more artwork in my house than I have anywhere else, and I probably always will. I have piles and piles and piles. I'm painting because I enjoy the process of painting. I'm painting because I'm learning and growing. And once in a while, when I have something that I really like, that I don't want to keep, then I'll send it out to a gallery. I'm in a couple of them right now. I'm working on a third, but I haven't got that deal done yet. So I think, you don't have to sell. There's no reason you have to sell. There's nothing wrong with you. And if you want to do commissions, great. I don't like commissions because commissions to me are like, somebody says, I did this commission one time, lovely people. And I said, you need a painting here. I'll do a painting for you here, a big one. And they said, well, they gave me a snapshot, and they said, we'd like a painting of this view. And by the way, there were a couple hikers in the view, and they said, okay, we want those people in there. And by the way, those are our kids. So we'd like our kids in the painting. And all of a sudden, the pressure's on, because now it's got to look kind of like what they want. I can't be as interpretive or creative maybe as I want to be. And so, it puts me under pressure. That's why I don't like to do commissions. I'll do one every once in a while, but everybody's different. Everybody's different. Okay, so we're going to go back into the comments here. If you have a question in the comments, go ahead and put it in there, and we'll try to get to it. I am messing up. I'm having problems with my mouse. Okay. Are acrylics considered similar prestige as oils? That's an interesting question, Emily. I think the answer is yes. But I think that a lot of people have this attitude about it, right? I was in a gallery the other day. I was in the Red Piano Gallery in Bluffton, North Carolina. Fabulous gallery, lots of really great artists, really expensive paintings. And right there in the middle of it all is Ann Blair Brown, who's one of the faculty members of Acrylic Live. Fabulous painter, very high prices. They can't keep them in stock, and they're acrylic. I think when somebody walks into a gallery and they see a picture that they love and they fall in love with the feeling or the emotion of that picture, I don't think that anything matters, right? It doesn't matter if it's watercolor or gouache or pastel or mixed media or pencil. They've just got to fall in love with it. I saw a painting there that I fell in love with by, what was his name? Now I'm going to embarrass myself. But anyway, the painting was so beautiful, and I really, really wanted to own that painting until I saw the price. and then I said, well, I just don't think I can right now. But it was, it was just done with pencil and a little bit of watercolor, and it was so, so beautiful. Just, sometimes things doesn't matter. It was tiny. It was beautiful. So I don't think it matters. I think acrylics can be similar prestige if you want them to be. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. If you want to come on live, just go to artschool.live/stream, and we'll put them on there. We have a free gift for you guys today. That free gift will pop up on the screen here any second. It's 97 incredible art secrets from the world's leading artists. We're going to take this out of circulation soon, and this is really good. It's 2 hours of video, and it's got lots of tips from lots of artists, kind of showcasing some of the videos that we've done over the years. And you can get it at 97artsecrets.com/ASL. And if you're not a subscriber to this program, we would really dig it if you would do that. Go to YouTube, look up Art School Live, and hit subscribe. Now, a lot of you are watching on lots of other platforms like Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and X and let's see, Twitch and gosh, Blue Sky. Yeah, we're on everything. Anyway, we've been here since COVID began, and we've now had, I think, 22 million viewers. Thank you for that. We've taught a lot of people to paint, and Mondays is when we talk about art marketing. So we're going to continue that discussion. But first, I want to play this for you. It's about the plein air convention, and I know something you don't know that's going to be revealed this week. So watch this promo.
If you're like most painters, you sometimes wonder if you're good enough to grow, good enough to paint alongside others, good enough to take a leap like this. I want you to hear this. Every master once felt exactly the way you do. The Plein Air Convention isn't an elite retreat. It's the world's largest gathering of plein air painters, but it feels amazingly small. 5 stages running at once means you're never lost in a crowd. You pick the demos you love, you move freely between rooms, you learn at your own pace. Unlike other art conventions where every session is an upcharge, PACE gives you complete access to everything. Every stage, every demo, every session, all included for one price. Other conventions make you pay for every session you attend, and you can't change if you don't love it. At PACE, all sessions are open to all people. Included in your price, you'll find small groups forming naturally. Beginners painting next to other beginners or alongside great masters. Strangers become friends within minutes. At PACE, everyone is an equal, welcomed, supported, and encouraged. No one here judges your skill level. Everybody remembers what it felt like to be new at painting. And here's the best part of the event. You don't ever need to feel alone or to paint alone, not even for a single minute. PACE becomes your tribe. The friendships you make here can last a lifetime.
You know, when it's very comfortable atmosphere, people are all very, very friendly. It's a wonderful experience. I mean, it's a wealth of information.
Then we go outside into the incredible beauty of the amazing Ozarks. Dramatic light, peaceful afternoons, and views that beg to be painted. And you're painting shoulder to shoulder with some of the greatest living artists who have become your newest friends. If you've been waiting for the right moment to grow, to connect, and to feel inspired again, this is it. Join us for 5 life-changing days at the Plein Air Convention and Expo. Seats are limited, so register now and don't miss your chance to discover what you're truly capable of.
I know something you don't know, and I can't tell you, but if you're gonna go to PACE, you better get it done because something's about to happen. Okay, let's see. Here's a question from Susie Powell. What about living in a tiny farm ranch community and nobody buys due to needing dollars for making a living? Susie, there's an old saying, and that saying is stand in the river where the money is flowing. Right. So that's a pretty common occurrence. You know, a lot of people live in a place where there is nobody to buy art. First off, I would ask yourself this question. Does somebody here own a business or a store? If they own a business or a store, are there more than one of them? Are there 10 of them or 20 of them? Are there people who are there some areas of town where there are some bigger farms or some nicer houses? And the answer to that is usually there are. And so those people might be in a position to buy artwork. By the way, sometimes we're assuming that everybody is poor and nobody can spend any money, but you just never know. It depends on pricing, of course. But there is probably some place within a relatively short driving distance of where you are, where you could find the river of money flowing. And so ask yourself, where is that? Is it a nearby community? If you live in a tiny, tiny little town in the middle of nowhere, how far is the big city that everybody goes to? And how can you get in there? I think those are the things. Not everything is going to be the perfect place. And so I would just keep that in mind, that it's not always going to be perfect everywhere. Okay, so let's see if there's any other questions here in the chat, and let's go on. Derek Johnson in Tacoma, Washington. Derek has a question, and what Derek says is, should artists publicly display prices online or require inquiries? All right, Derek, I'm going to answer this question for you. So imagine you decide last night, I decided I need a piece of technical equipment because my internet wasn't working, and I needed it here today. And so I went on to Amazon, and I bought it, and it said they could deliver it by 4 o'clock this morning, which was really great. So I clicked on it and I bought it. What if they said, please inquire about the price? I would have moved on because I was in a hurry. I needed something. Now, it's a little different for artwork, but it's really the same thing. Now, I was talking to an art dealer in a major metropolitan area, and this was probably 15 years ago. This was kind of at the beginning of this whole internet thing, right? So at the time, all the galleries were hiding their prices and making people call. And he was not. And I was curious about how that was going for him, because I kind of felt like everybody should put the prices out there. He said, I walked in this morning and I arrived to a wire for $650,000 from someone in Brazil who bought a piece of sculpture. They saw it online. I had the price online, and I had in my website, I had wiring instructions. He walked into a $650,000 sale. He didn't do anything except have it up on his website. So I think, Derek, that there's a thing called friction, and friction is the kiss of death. So think about this. You go to buy something and you click on a button, and then it says, well, you need to do these 3 things. And then you click on that and it says you need to do these 3 things. And then you get distracted and you forget and you don't follow up. So I went to book a massage, and I went to this website, and they said, click here to book. So I clicked, and it made me download an app. And then as I'm downloading the app, it said, you already have a membership to this app, insert your password. And I'm like, I don't remember that. And so I'm looking for my password. I don't find it. I finally gave up, and I just called somebody else, right? That's friction. And I want instant results. I want to be able to buy something. If I'm sitting around and I'm having a glass of brandy, and I decide I'm going to buy a John Singer Sargent painting for $1 million, then, and by the way, that's not me doing that, but if I could, I would. And so I had a buddy who called me, says, hey, I decided I want a John Singer Sargent painting. Can you find me one? I said, yep. 2 days later, it's in his living room, and he's living large. He bought 2 of them. Right. So the idea here is you don't want to create friction. I think I would put prices on everything. There's some research that said prices should be listed in red. And there's also research that says there should be a higher price above it that's X'd out, because it helps people compare. So like if you have a normal price and you have a sale price, you would, have the normal price and the sale price, that kind of a thing. So yeah, display them online and test everything. What's the worst that can happen? Test it. Okay. Karen Douglas in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was just there. Nice, beautiful place. How often should I communicate with my email list without overwhelming them? Yeah. Well, there's not a right answer to that. Karen, test everything. Test everything. I think that most artists tend to be a little bit gun shy about getting out there too much because of people like me who send too much. And so, and the reason we send a lot is because we have so much going on. We have to constantly tell people about all these new things. And so, and you know what? Most people don't opt out. Most people open them. Most people read them. Most people respond. And so you'd be surprised how much emailing you can do. Now, you cannot email people in theory unless they've opted into your list more than once. But if they've opted into your list, signed up for your newsletter, then it should have an opt-in statement that says, we're going to send you our newsletter. I would say, Karen, it depends on how much inventory you're trying to move and so on. But I would say they forget you if you only email them once a month. And so I would look for, I think a really nice model for an artist is to send 2 newsletters a month. And instead of putting 30 things in your newsletter, put 3 things in your newsletter and send it twice a month or 4 times a month. Or send something that's, here's a new, and a nice excuse to talk about something new. Here are the 3 latest paintings I did on my trip to China. And so look for any opportunity and test it out. If you're sending too much, people will say so. And some people will say so anyway. And some people don't want too much and some people don't care. It just depends. Some people can't get enough of you. All right. Okay, where are we going? Leo Bennett in Chicago. Leo says, what's your advice for artists who feel stuck and at the same price point for years? Raise your prices, Leo. If you're stuck at the same price point, whose fault is that? I think it's your fault, right? So a really good habit. I mean, just think about this. If this were 2 years ago, remember what happened to everything 2 years ago? The inflation was out of control. It's under control now, but everything was out of control. Everything was super expensive. Some things still are. Meat hasn't really come down that much, but a lot of things have. Eggs have come back down and gas has come way down. But think about this, if everything costs you 10% more in a year and you're charging the same prices, you're actually not charging the same prices, you're charging less. Because what's happening is you get less buying power. So if you have a $100 price point and your costs have just gone up 10%, so you're making 10% less on that $100 price point. So at least to keep up with inflation, make it $110, right? And a really good habit for everybody is just to raise your prices every year. I don't always do it, but some years I can and some years I can't because it makes sense in some years. Because, think about this. I have Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazine, both lovely magazines. We have resisted the urge to put it on crummy paper. I can buy crummy paper that you can see through. It doesn't feel nice. It's not rich. I can buy that paper for about half the price and save a ton of money on printing my magazines. The reason I don't do it is because my reputation is on there. I want quality. But my printer just informed us that our prices to print are going up 20%. And my postal inspector just informed me that the postal prices are going up. So I have no choice but to look for a way to raise those prices. Hasn't happened yet. It's going to happen. If you don't have a subscription, get it now. So I think, just in general, raise it. If you're stuck, keep in mind that you may be stuck because of your own mental limitations, right? We all have these stories we tell ourselves. Nobody would pay more than that. And you're thinking that because I wouldn't pay more than that, right? So imagine this. You're someone who doesn't make a lot of money. Let's say that you're living from hand to mouth and you have no money, and you're also making paintings. It's hard for you to imagine that somebody would spend $100 or $200 for what you've created, because to you, $100 or $200 is a lot. But I have friends who buy artwork who will spend, I have a friend who spent $400,000 on a painting. Actually, I just mentioned the guy who spent $1 million on John Singer Sargent painting. So people will spend, and you've just got to kind of get out of that mindset that nobody will do it. Maybe you're talking to the wrong people, but you just got to, and by the way, if your gallery can't get the price you need, fire them. I know I'm going to hear from galleries now. Look, if I have an example of this. A friend of mine called me, said, "Hey, I can't get my prices up. I need to get my prices up. My gallery won't raise the prices." And I said, "Fire him." She said, "Well, I'm loyal to him." I said, "Great, then accept the prices." "Well, I don't want to do that." I said, "Then fire him." So I said, first call a couple of the galleries. They already know who you are because your brand is big, and say, "Hey, if you carry my paintings, can you sell them at this price point?" And they said, she called them and they said, "Yeah, all day long." As a matter of fact, that's not enough money. So it's the mindset of the people selling it. That might be you, that might be galleries. So if something's getting in the way, if there's a roadblock, you go over it, under it, around it, or through it. That's my philosophy. Okay, I want to tell you guys about something else that's happening that is really pretty exciting. I own a magazine called Fine Art Connoisseur. I own a magazine called Plein Air. And Fine Art Connoisseur is, a lot of artists get it, but it's also a magazine for collectors. We have like 310, I believe, billionaires that read it. Billionaires. I have a gallery told me that the average, they sell an average of $80,000 every time they advertise with it. I think that's pretty cool. So we're doing, we do these annual trips. This year, we're doing a Fine Art Connoisseur collector trip to Japan. And we go behind the scenes, we go to the museums, we meet curators, we do all kinds of stuff like that. It's a 10-day trip to Japan. Great time to go to Japan. And we're doing it. And so that is at finearttrip.com/Japan. I also, for Plein Air Magazine, I do an annual trip where I take people plein air painting in some place they probably wouldn't go by themselves, because people feel safe with me, because they should feel safe with me, because I do my homework. Anyway, I decided to take a group of people to China, because I went to China last July. I loved it. I can't get enough of it. I want to go back there and paint, and it's so beautiful. And the people are wonderful. The food is great. It's safe. It's fabulous. All the stuff that everybody said to me about, don't go to China, it just didn't bother me. And so I've got a group going to China. And it's both of these are relatively limited size groups. And so that's at pleinairtrip.com/China. All right. And we timed it. So some painters will go on the Fine Art Connoisseur Japan trip. So we timed it. So those painters, when we're done there, we're going to go plein air painting in Japan for a few days before we meet everybody else in China. So it's like cool time. So check them out. Okay, one last question before we go and see if we got anything. I work in oil. This is Betty Vermeer. Great name, Betty. I work in oil or watercolor and have over 400 paintings. When creating a portfolio, how do I represent both of my mediums? Just do it. What's the difficulty? I think, you know, what you've got to ask yourself is, where do I really soar? So I'm really good at some things and not really good at other things. I'm not equally as good at watercolor as I am with gouache, as I am with oil, as I am with pastel. I'm working on it. And so you got to ask yourself, where am I my best? And by the way, get some third-party answers to that. Somebody who's qualified to tell you the truth and say, you know, which of my work is best. Some galleries might have a problem with representing somebody doing oil plus watercolor. Most of them won't. And by the way, a lot of great artists do that. You know, Cindy Barron is one of the greatest watercolor artists on the earth, and she is also an oil painter. So, and she paints watercolors that look like oils and oils that look like watercolors. So I don't think it really matters. I just put it together, and, you know, the gallery is going to tell you what they want anyway. They're going to point to things. I had a gallery owner come to my place, my studio, and I had probably 50 paintings on the walls, and he just started pointing. That one, 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 that one. And he picked out 16 paintings. He said, I want to do a show. And so he took a bunch of them with him, and there were some I wanted to finish that I'm still not finished yet because I'm a busy guy. So I think, you know, it wouldn't have mattered if they were watercolor or oil. It just depends on the gallery owner's preference. So just put together a portfolio and let them see it. That's the most important thing. Okay, so we got one more question. We'll just fit one more in here. Tell us where you're watching from, guys. That would be really great to hear from you. Megan Wallace in Sedona, Arizona. Should I focus more on local marketing or building a national audience? That's the same question we had earlier. Go back and listen to the answer. Nathan Reed in Kansas City, Missouri. How can artists create a memorable first impression at art shows or events? I would say probably taking your clothes off would be memorable. Might not be popular. You know, what do you want them to remember about you is the question. So a memorable first impression usually involves a stunt or something that you do at your booth that no one else does. Okay, let me give you an example. 2 years ago at the Plein Air Convention, they set up a trapeze act. We had a trapeze person come in, and then I went up on the trapeze and did the trapeze act and hung upside down. That creates a memorable impression. Why do I do it? I don't know. It's fun. And then last year, you know, a memorable impression, I went on stage in a glittering tuxedo, and I had showgirls from Las Vegas with me, or from Reno in that particular case. And it was fun. It was just different. You know, and we do it just because it's fun, it's different, and maybe kind of creates a memory. So look for things that you can do. I think that's probably the easy answer. Hey guys, thank you for tuning in today. We're here every weekday. Make sure to subscribe, go to YouTube, look up Art School Live. Every weekday, we'll be here tomorrow and the rest of the week. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Eric Rhoads. We will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.